Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Artis here. And this week in this series, we're going to be talking about cardiovascular fitness and ways to improve your cardiovascular fitness. The number one way that I think that you can improve your cardiovascular fitness is by what they call doing zone 2 training. If you know anything about cardio, there are 5 heart rate zones that you train in. The issue is that most people don't train with enough intensity, and some people train with too much intensity. So how do you figure that out? Zone 2 is roughly when your heart rate is probably about 65% of your maximum heart rate. So your maximum heart rate is calculated with a generic formula where you use 220 minus your age, and then you actually take that 220 minus your age, it gives you a number, and you take and multiply that times 0.65, and that gives you a percentage, and that's usually where you should stay. Zone 2 is also what they call the fat burning zone. That's where you burn the most fat, research tells us. The issue what I was talking about before, when people are just walking and they're having a conversation, their heart rate never gets up enough to start burning fat. So they're doing exercise, which is good. It's more of a recovery type thing. And then the other issue that people have and why they don't lose weight and they don't really get the health results that they need is that they actually are overexerting themselves. So they're actually going way too hard that their body actually burns through a lot of the glucose that it has stored, and then it starts burning muscle and it doesn't burn fat. So that's one of the reasons why you can see some people on a Stairmaster or a treadmill running, and they never really lose weight because they're burning muscle. And then the other thing, what I want you to focus on when you do zone two training typically should last about 30 to 45 minutes. That's where you can actually have a brief or light conversation, but not a detailed conversation. You may have a little shorter breath after a while where you might start breathing a little bit, but then that's what happens is when you actually start burning that fat. And that's, I've actually seen it happen with my own body, and I see it happen with lots of patients as well. But I just want to share you that the ways that you can track how you're in zone 2. Most people have some kind of watch on, whether it's a Fitbit, whether it's an Apple Watch, whether I use Garmin. I'm a huge fan of Garmin products. They actually tell you what zones you're in, and you can actually set if you want to do a zone 2 workout. And if you go out of zone 2, if you go too high, it'll beep and it'll tell you to slow down. Or if you go too low, it'll beep and it'll tell you that you need to speed up. As a cyclist, or even sometimes as an avid runner, sometimes when I'm running, I like to do my zone 2 cardiovascular workouts because that improves my overall performance. So when I'm saying that too, that's how I can build up the endurance and the capacity to actually do these long rides. So that's where you get the biggest gains and the biggest benefits. As an athlete, I noticed that, and that can work just not only for athletes, but it works for people in everyday life. Now, the question too, and what that zone 2 training is going to do is it's going to help you to actually burn more fat. It's also going to help with vascularization or capillization, where you actually generate blood flow to the small capillaries, your eyes, your feet. It's going to help with your hormones. It's going to help with digestion. It's so many benefits to that, and it doesn't overtax the body. Now, how long should you spend in that zone 2? Zone 2 should be probably 80% of your workouts. Now, there is a time to where you got to go all out to where you do some hard sprints to where you can get up to maybe past that 80% of your maximum heart rate to where you get into like a zone 3 or 4 or 5 to actually tax that heart a little bit, but you don't want to stay there. It's just going to put some stress on the body so you can expand your capacity so that you can actually increase your growth. Now, how do people measure that? There's a number that always is popping up lately, and it's always so important, and I didn't really pay attention to it until I got into cycling. It's called VO2 max. Once I did some research on that, what researchers are saying, VO2 max is one of the best predictors of longevity. So the higher that number, the longer they're saying that you're going to live. So the question might be is like, what is VO2 max? VO2 max is basically the amount of oxygen that you burn efficiently while working in an aerobic activity or a cardiovascular activity. You could also do it with other things too. But what happens is the higher that number, so you might start out with, some people may be in the 30s, some people may be in the 40s, some people may be in the 50s. The higher that number, usually the better shape the person's in as far as cardiovascular. The high-end endurance Olympic professional athletes tend to have a higher VO2 max because their overall cardiovascular condition to actually perform at such a high level. When people that walking around everyday life, you can actually get yours up that way too. So if you know that that can actually help predict how efficient your body's working and overall improve your quality of life, and the best thing yet is you can live longer, why wouldn't you do anything to improve it? So how do you improve that VO2 max? You improve that VO2 max by zone 2 training, what I just talked about. So with that being in hand, check out my blog, check out my page, share it. But try to get into some zone training and you watch the difference that it'll make in your life. You'll be more intentional with your workouts and you'll see faster gains and better recovery. I hope that helps. It's Dr. Artis.